Look how ready Mike is.
I'm ready, baby!
Snick and Mike's top 100 games. But does anyone care what they have to say? Let's. I know I don't. Cause they may doubt, they might scream, they may say some things that are plain wrong. Dab on it, dab on it. But they are dumb bing bongs. My teacher's better.
And that's how you make fire.
Boom, yes.
I'm Mike. We are the Brothers Murph, and we are continuing our journey through the top 100 games of all time, according to us. But it should be according to you, too, because our taste is impeccable. These are our individual lists of our favorite games of all time, disregarding any specific category, anything like that. So, we have been going through this. We would love it if you joined us in this journey. You might have seen in the comments of past videos through this 100. Hopefully people have been contributing their own top 100 games. We'd love to see that from people.
Yeah.
Also, we are running a crowdfunding campaign to support this channel. We're doing our annual fundraising event on Kickstarter. So if you like what we do and have a couple extra dollars, don't mind giving it to us to help support and pay for all of our businessly expenses. It will be massively helpful, as this is our full-time job. So do check that out, and we'll hop right into our list.
Here's the thing. I would love it if 40 people subscribed right now.
If you're a person who hasn't subscribed, be one of the 40 today. You will get
click the button.
Nothing in return other than us.
Because if you don't, I will burn cycle
you to the ground.
That's my number 40. Is burn cycle.
Oh, burn cycle. I like it. All right, talk about burn cycle.
Burn cycle. I'm gonna burn you on a bicycle.
Get on the bicycle real quick. Why? Why you have a flamethrower? Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about
it. Real quick. Just get on the bicycle.
Burn cycle is my number.
You got burn cycled.
Burn cycle is my number 40. I really like burn cycle. This is a game that I pretty exclusively play solo.
Yeah.
It is a big old chip theory game. Even for a chip theory game, it's a big game and it's a complicated game. Again, even for chip theory, which is really saying a lot. I love me some chip theory, but like when you get down to 2-minute bones, you're like, this game is not that complicated. There's just a lot of like educated.
Yeah.
Burn Cycle has got a lot going on. But this is a game where you are robots and you're kind of staging a robot uprising, but you're not doing it violently because you're not like cool robots. You're like cleaner robots. You're like janitors and stuff.
You're working class.
And yeah, you're real talk. And you are going to be doing some kind of mission. Oh, I saw Mary walking around, which means of course she's going to hop up. You're going to be some kind of mission in one of the 3 corporations. So the corporations are each going to have a whole bunch of different missions. And each corporation is going to set up in a different way in terms of the board. And you're going to be trying to do some kind of thing. It might be like you need to get into this specific room and like malfunction this like server there or something like that. Do all these different things. But there are these big old humans in mechs walking around. They're like the security guards. And you're trying to avoid them. This is ultimately a heist game. This is a game where you're not trying to like come in guns a-blazing. You are trying to hide and sneak around. And I think that's what makes this game work for me. If it was this big guns a-blazing, it'd be cool.
Sure.
But like it's more fun to me that you're like this like maintenance robot,
but
you're like sneaking in and stuff like that and doing this stuff. And all the robots work differently. They all have different abilities that they do. And I really like playing this game solo because one, in any game, no matter the player count, everyone has a robot. There's also a robot called the command module. Each robot on its backside has a command module side.
Kind of like your helper that everyone
controls. It's kind of like a robot that just everyone controls. And there's a lot of things in the mission where like specifically you need the command module to do this thing.
Right.
And so the cool thing is even when you're playing solo, you're still technically playing 2 robots.
Yeah.
Which is really, really cool. And to me, it's just fun. I just kind of choose a random mission, choose a random robot because there's like 15 of them. And I'm like, oh, this one is like this one I was playing recently. Her name's Joan. She has like a little drone that can like go off and like try to like break open doors for her. The
Joan drone?
Yeah, it's really great. And so I really enjoy it. This is a game that I play exclusively solo because it's just so big, so unwieldy. It's kind of hard to get played at any other player account. But I'll just have it sit on my table for like a week or two, and I'll just kind of slowly play through a scenario or two, and I still really, really love it. That's Burn Cycle.
That's awesome. My number 40 is a classic Euro game, as we like to play here. One that, like, when I first played it was like the heaviest, hardest thing I could possibly imagine, and it broke my brain. This is Rajas of the Ganges.
Oh, wow. Okay, yeah.
This game was a step up for us into more mid on the side of heavyweight,
mid on the side of trash
Euro game, where there's just kind of a really multiple paths of victory or multiple ways to work your resources and your dice and stuff like that. So in Rise of the Ganges, you are, well-to-do folks who are trying to build up markets and build up your fame and wealth, essentially. And your fame and your wealth are on the board marked with 2 different markers. You're trying to get those 2 markers to overlap. You see this more recently in Arc Nova. It's the same kind of concept where you want your markers to overlap to trigger the end game and hopefully be the furthest past, the most overlapped markers to win the game. The thing I really like about this is there's all these dice. There's 4 different colors of dice, and you'll be, having some amount of them at all times. Yep. And it's a worker placement game, so you're putting your workers out onto various action spots on the board, and oftentimes you'll have to spend dice as kind of a currency to take the various actions. There's like a river you can go up, and those dice you have to have values 1, 2, or 3. Other times you might need to go to a spot and have specific colors of dice. Again, so you either might need specific colors or specific values.
Or sometimes both.
Yeah, and you are oftentimes drafting these tiles to put out onto your player board that you have to kind of connect paths together like Carcassonne, and those will require a certain value or higher of a certain color of die to draft. And those are going to give you markets that you can then start selling from to gain money, or they might give you these buildings which you can instantly earn fame from. I guess you're
like famous architecture,
and stuff like that. And you're trying to, again, just work all these things. So you're managing, your worker pool and which action spaces you go to. You're managing those dice and making sure that you don't end up with no dice in hand because you're going to be fairly limited. And so there's ways you can trade in 1 color die for 2 of a different color. So you're trying to manage all these things as you build up these tiles. It's just something that when we first played it, I was like,
what is happening?
Never seen something like this where the dice are like, again, kind of currency. Like that was new to me. The 2-track thing was new to me. It's a game that we've really enjoyed ever since, and really have just gotten a lot of love out of it.
Yeah, it was in my 70s, I think.
Yeah, it was mentioned a few lists ago for you. It's just a game that we'll forever love, and so it's here at number 40. Number 39 is a Mancala-style game, of which there are just way too few. This is 5 Tribes.
How are there so few?
I don't know. I mean, that must be hard to make, to be fair.
I guess, yeah, because why would people do it more otherwise?
Yeah, so 5 Tribes is a game where you have all these different tiles that kind of make up your board. It'll be a 5x6 grid of tiles in the base game anyway. And each of these tiles is going to have 3 meeples on it of different colors to start the game. And what you're going to do on a turn is you're going to choose one of the tiles, pick up all the meeples from that spot, and you're going to go moving orthogonally adjacency-wise, down and to the left and down or whatever, dropping off 1 meeple at a time until you land on a tile with 1 final meeple, and whatever color you have that you're dropping off, so say it's white, you will pick up all of the white meeples from that last tile and get to activate the tile, and then often get to activate an ability based on the color of meeple that you picked up. I really love the fact that as you pick up your meeples and you're moving them and dropping them off, you're considering so many different things. You're thinking of what are the color of meeples that I want to pick up? What is the action space I want to land on and the action that I get, as a result of landing on that, and things like that. Each of the 5 colors do different stuff, the colors of meeples. So, the white ones are kind of your elders, and as you collect them, they're worth points. But then there's gins you can get that you will often use your elders to pay for or to use their abilities and things. There's green meeples that as you collect them, you get to get these merchant cards, which you want to create sets of different types of goods. And there's also spaces on the board that are markets where you can then buy more of those cards and stuff. You're not just getting random ones from those meeples. There's red meeples, which are like assassins, and you can take out another meeple, a certain number of spaces away from the tile that you're ending on, stuff like that. So there's just such fun things to consider, all of these things. And ideally, you land on a spot that has only 1 color of meeple so that you can then place, there's only blue here and my final meeple is blue. I pick up all of the meeples from that spot, leaving the tile empty, which means I get to put a camel down and claim that spot, which will be worth points at the end of the game. There's palm trees that can go out and palaces and stuff, which can be worth end game points for the person who owns that tile spot. Tons of stuff. There's just a ton of fun little things to consider. And I just love the puzzle of picking up and how to strategically drop off your meeples along the way to kind of maximize your turn and your points and stuff like that. It's just a really fun game. Every time you play it, it's still is this thing where like we play it and I'm like,
Oh yeah.
why don't I play this more?
Yeah.
Like I really like this game
Oh
so
yeah,
much.
this game's a masterpiece. That's right.
Why
Like, I don't.
don't
To
we
be fair,
play it all
I don't
the
think it's not on my. I don't. Yeah, it's not on
It's
my
a bit of a
list.
bear
Yeah.
to set up, and I think that's honestly the only thing that stops us playing
You know,
it
it's
more.
just one of those games that for some reason we just don't reach for very often. I don't
Yeah.
entirely know why.
But every
we
time,
just
every
don't.
time we do,
Yeah.
it's just like such a delight. So it's never going to go anywhere from our
Yeah.
collection. But that's Five Tribes. Really like it a lot.
Number 39 is a game called Scholars of the South Tigris. This is the second of the South Tigris series that has made this list. And it will be the last. And I really like Scholars of the South Tigris. The South Tigris series is by Garphill Games and Shem Phillips and Sam McDonald, who are really, at this point, just a design master duo.
It's hard to beat them.
The South Tigris series is super, super good. This is, again, a trilogy. They've done the West Kingdom, the North Sea, although they're all very, very different for each other. Even the 3 games within the South Tigris series are very, very different for each other. But this is a game where you are basically trying to fill up the library with scrolls and manuscripts, things like that from around the world. But you need to translate those scrolls into Arabic because you're in Baghdad, so like you need them in your local language, right? And so the problem is these scrolls you might be getting from Greece or China or somewhere else, and it's coming in Chinese, it's coming in Greece, and so you have to employ or have the use of translators to translate those into Arabic so that you can actually read them, you know, and things like that. And so basically, this game is very linear because you, again, can get these scrolls. They're going to go into the houses of wisdom, and then you can basically take those scrolls, use various translators, translate them to Arabic, and then you then get to keep that scroll, which is going to give you points at the end of the game. Because all the scrolls will have certain kinds of like set collection kind of points, things like that. And you also can travel around the world, which is, again, how you get those scrolls into the houses of wisdom to begin with. So it's very linear in that way. But it's really tough, and it's pretty heavy because everything costs resources. To use these translators, you need gold to do that, and there's this constant like you have to bounce from translator to translator to translator to get back to Arabic because you very rarely, especially the farther away the scroll is from, you're not going to be able to go directly from that language to Arabic, your local language. You're going to have to go through multiple kind of translators. If it's something really close by, like Persia, you might be able to have one that can go. You might have a translator that speaks Persian and Arabic, and you can just go one-to-one. But if it's from like China or Greece or somewhere like that, you have to go like Chinese to Syriac, Syriac to Greek, Greek to Persian, Persian to Arabic. You might have to go through this really long line to get that translated back to Arabic.
Right.
And you have to pay all those people, so there's this constant battle of like, what scrolls do you actually try and translate? What's worth it for you to do? Is the scoring on the card worth for you to do? Getting these scrolls also allows you to bump up these various tracks because these scrolls are about like mathematics or astronomy or things like that. So when you get these scrolls or when you put them in the House of Wisdom, you get to bump up those tracks. Those give you cool things. There's so much to think about. It's got this crazy way that you can manipulate all your dice with all these colors that I'm not even going to get into because it's nuts. It's
very cool.
A lot going on in the game, but it's really, really fun. I really, really enjoy it a lot. Scholars of South Tigris, I could see maybe overtaking the next one that we'll talk about later. But we'll see. I really like Scholars. I like the whole South Tigris series. I think it's absolutely amazing. And that is my 39. My number 38 is mentioned by Mike a list or two ago, I think. And this is War of the Ring second edition.
It's my number
specifically.
50, I think.
Yeah, this is a game that is Lord of the Rings in a box. But you specifically get to tell kind of a unique story of Lord of the Rings. You are going through the kind of the main story of Lord of the Rings of Frodo and the ring bearers and stuff trying to destroy the ring. But again, you get to tell your own version of that. This is a 2-player mostly only game. One side is playing the Shadow Army, that's Sauron, the Easterlings, and then Isengard, and then the other person is playing the Free Peoples, which is like the elves, the dwarves, the men of the north, Gondor, and is that it? Maybe. I don't know.
I think so.
Either way. And so all of those people, and then they're trying to, the Free People are trying to either destroy the ring, they can win that way, or they can win by essentially getting 4 points of military victory. The Shadow Army can win by corrupting the ring bearers completely and basically making them turn to the ring, or by getting 10 points of military victory, which is a lot more, but they also have a lot more firepower in terms of just people. They have a lot more numbers than the Free Peoples do, so it's a lot harder for them to get that military victory in terms of the amount of points that they need. But the cool thing is you get to tell your own story because you're starting off in Rivendell, but then you're obviously trying to make your way to Golgoroth and Mount Doom. And you're basically trying to get there, but you don't have to take the same story as the movies or the books. You can kind of go... You can break people off of the Fellowship. You all start as the Fellowship of the Nine, but you can have Gandalf leave and he can go to Moria if you want him to, but he can also just go to Gondor early, or he could go back over to the Shire and try and fight up in Angmar. You can have Boromir stay with the Fellowship the entire time and not go crazy. You can do all these different things because you can break people off, send them to different places depending on what you need to do in the game, and you get to tell your own version of this story. It's a big, huge war game. Usually takes like 3 or 4 hours to play. It's massive, but it just tells stories. You're playing these cards. These cards you can either play for their effects or you can play them during battles. All the cards are like specific to things in the story. So I have my bracelet here that says Hot for Bombadil. Thanks, shouts out to Hannah for making this for me. You can have a thing, there's like one where you're like in the house of Tom Bombadil and it's gonna do something around the old forest because that's where Tom Bombadil is, right? And so there's all these like deep cuts with the cards. It's just so dang good. If you like Lord of the Rings, it's a must play at some point in your life. It's a game we'll never play very often. We'll play like once every year or two. But I still love it this much. And that is my number 38. Yep.
38? All right, nice. My number 38 is a Stefan Feld game called Marrakesh. This is
wow, that
newer.
high?
Yeah, man, I like it a lot.
A Cult of the New?
I knew I was going to crap for it. I knew it. The list is the list. Marrakesh.
Wow. I really like Marrakesh.
I really like Marrakesh a lot. Is a newer Stefan Feld game.
Yeah.
Where you are merchants and you are basically activating various actions on your player board. There's, I think, 12 colors and 11 types of actions, 11 areas on your player board.
So many.
That you are activating at different times and stuff. And you're going to be doing this by every round choosing these different color of cylinders called Keshis. It's kind of like this made-up thing that we're all kind of using for actions and stuff in the game. So you're going to be choosing 3 of your color. There's 12 colors, like I said. 3 of your colors to choose. Everyone's going to simultaneously reveal these Keshis, and whatever the 3 colors you selected, that's where you're going to put your workers that turn. Those are going to be, or that round, I guess. Those are going to be the 3 sections of your player board that are going to activate right now. The cool thing is that everyone's little Keshis are going to get collected and then dropped into a tower, a cube tower, and most of them are going to come spitting right out the bottom, but some of them might get stuck and left behind. So what goes in may not come out.
Yeah.
And then what does come out will get sorted by color. And then we're going to go around the table and you're going to draft 1 or 2 Keshis of 1 color at a time. And those are going to basically all upgrade your action types and make them stronger. And what's really neat about that is I might be activating gray, pink, and yellow this round, but 2 greens come out, which are my little date orchards. I'm like, you know what? I haven't done green yet this turn. If I take those greens now, I get to increase that track 2 times, meaning when I take the green action later, I get more resources. Yeah. So you kind of build up these actions, but ultimately what's on offer for the draft might all of a sudden pull you in this new direction. You're like, I kind of want those, so that's pretty nice. What can I do with that over there? And like a Stefan Feld game, a point salad game, they will refer to them as, there's various ways you can go. Various directions.
12 different areas,
Gosh, so many different areas to possibly build up, score points from, gain resources from. And I just love the whole thing of like, I'm choosing these 3 sections, but these Keshis drop out. There's a bunch more brown all of a sudden than I thought there would be, so maybe I want to go in that direction now, but the 3 actions that I'm going to activate still remain the same based on the colors I put in, but I love the simple fact that I don't have to draft what I added to the pot. That is really neat to me.
Yeah, it's cool.
You're trying to find synergies and stuff, and you get these stronger versions of the actions. If I keep drafting green over and over, I might max out that track. So if I take the green action, I get like 8 dates all of a sudden, a whole bunch of stuff, and you get points as you increase those tracks. So you're getting kind of pulled in all these different directions. You're finding synergies, you're finding combos. It does a lot of that kind of stuff that we really enjoy in Euro games, and I just really enjoy the small random element of that cube tower.
Yeah.
Where something gets held back, so next round, maybe all of them come spitting out, all of a sudden there's more of these tokens to draft than usual.
Yeah.
And what colors people choose and the mind games you play with that. It's really, really fun. It's one that I've just enjoyed because there's 11 sectors. It's fun to be like, well, let me try to focus on this area right now. And ooh, maybe I can focus on this area next. You know, it's just, there's a lot of stuff to explore. So it's high on my list at the moment.
I love it. That's great.
38, Marrakesh. My number 37 is from the same designer I just mentioned, Stefan Feld. This is the Castle of Burgundy.
Wow, that's pretty low.
Yeah.
Wow. Look at Mike's bad
Nick's
list.
got a lot of thoughts about my list. You notice how I never say anything? And Nick's always like, pretty high, pretty low. Never just right. Never just right.
Nope, never just right.
Castle of Burgundy is next. This is the quintessential classic Euro game before you get pressed about that. Of course, there's other examples of it, but Castle of Burgundy is one of them on that list. Castle of Burgundy is a game where you are, you're running your duchy. You are trying to fill it up with tiles that are, have animals and buildings and technologies and ships and things like that.
Yeah.
And your whole board is kind of color-coded, where you're going to have groups of the certain color, which points to a certain type of tile, like the blues are ships and things like that. And everything's going to be dictated about, on these dice that you roll. So you're going to roll 2 dice, and you're going to use each of them in turn, when it's your turn, to either draft tiles from the central board. Once you have tiles on your player board, you can add them to your duchy by matching the number. So I need a 5 to place on a tile on a 5, and you also have to have the right color. So you can't put buildings where animals are supposed to be and vice versa.
That would be insane.
That'd be crazy. It'd be chaos.
Chaos.
Things like that. And you're trying to do all this stuff to manage, your dice as effectively as possible.
Yeah.
So it's really fun, I think, and satisfying about this game is you're taking something that's random, rolling dice. They're going to do what they do. But there's all these ways to use dice. There's 4 different types of actions you can do with each die. You can get more workers, which help you mitigate your dice. You can sell goods. You can gain a tile. You can place a tile, things like that. And then the tiles themselves are going to give you bonuses. Animals will score you points instantly. Each of the building types gives you stuff like silver and more workers and give you the ability to place a tile immediately.
Yep.
When you place your castles out, they give you a random action, or not random, but a virtual action. You can do any of the actions as if you had any value die, all sorts of things like that. And there's just so many things that can score you points. If you sell goods, get some points and get a silver. Guess what silver's worth? Points. You can complete areas of the same color. If you have like 3 building spots in a row and you get them all filled up and it completes that area, you get to score points based on the size of that area and the round that you're in. Animals score you points. If you get all of your animal spots full on your whole board, you can get a little bonus for being the first one to do that and get some points. There's a million ways to kind of work your board and find opportunities to score, and you're just trying to maximize and do better than anyone else.
Yeah.
And so I just love that's a game that gives you a bunch of options.
Yeah.
So you can kind of look for the best possible path to victory for yourself. It's fun to do that over and over and over again. So
Yeah, you can play it forever.
37 is a classic for a
Yeah.
reason. That's Castles of Burgundy.
Yeah, great game. My number 37 is a game called The Networks. Love The Networks.
So good.
Networks is really just a weird, unique little game. And this is a game where you are putting on a TV network. Everyone has their own TV channel, and you are basically getting...
programming.
Yeah, you're programming prime times, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, and 10 o'clock p.m., and you are basically getting shows to put in those time slots. You are going to be getting ads to put on some of those shows, stars to then put on some of those shows, to ultimately try to get viewers. Viewers are your points in this game, which makes sense. And so basically on your turn, you can do a couple different actions. Again, you can get a show, you can get a star, you can get an ad, you can get a network card, which would be kind of like these power cards, be ongoing powers, or like a one-time thing you get to do, things like that. But the cool thing is whenever you get a show is going to have some kind of genre. So it might be like an action show or a drama or a reality show or a sports show or something like that. And it's going to have a time slot that it wants to be in. So 8, 9, or 10. If it's maybe a more adult show or something like that, it might want to be in 10 p.m. You don't want it too early. You don't want kids seeing it, that kind of stuff. But it's like a sports show. It might want to be at 8 p.m. because you kind of want everyone watching it. And so you want it to be in its preferred time slot. And then basically, once you put it in your time slot, you're going to put a little cube on it that's going to track the amount of viewers it has. And every season of the show, it's going to get a different amount of viewers for the most part. Yeah. So it might be like the first season, it does okay, but the second and third season, it just takes off. It gets really popular, but then the fourth season, it drops off a cliff. Felicity cut her hair. No one's watching anymore. That kind of stuff.
That is a timely reference.
Right? It killed that show, you know?
Yeah.
Isn't that wild? Like, God, people, that's how you know the human race is fickle.
Yeah.
Like, that killed that show.
The 90s are a wild time.
Yeah.
Gary Russell deserved
But
better.
nonetheless, so in every round, the game is 5 rounds long. Every round, all of your shows are going to age into the next season. So there's this constant battle of like when to swap out your shows. Because you can kick a show to your archives, which means it will kind of get you some reruns viewers, but then you can bring in new shows. And so is that, okay, do I do it now? Do I give it one more season? Also on top of that, certain shows can take stars. If it's like a medical drama, you want some stars in there. So you can throw a star in there. Stars are going to get you extra viewers. If it's like a sports show, you might want to throw some ads in there. That's going to get you money. Money is how you get these shows. This is how you get these stars onto your shows. So it's this constant balancing act and that constant like, do I let this ride a little longer? Do I not do it? It's just super fun. Also, like, it's got this really weird art style to it that works very well.
Yeah.
And every single show is a pun on a show that exists. And they're all real silly and real fun. And so every facet of this game, I think, is just absolutely outstanding, and I love it. It's number 37. Yep, that's the networks. My number 36 is a game that Mike mentioned a list or two ago, and this would be Fields of Arle. This is a big Uwe Rosenberg farming game. Shocker. But this one is actually 1 to 2 players, which actually is quite different for Uwe. This is a big farming game where you are building out your farm. You can get buildings for your farm. You can put fields out. You're getting various resources like flax and wheat and stuff like that. You know it. You get an animal. Your animals will breed. It's very Uwe Rosenberg farming stuff. But the cool thing about this game is that despite the fact that it sounds like every Uwe game ever made, it is actually feels quite different in the sense that like every round is either going to be in summer or it's going to be in winter, and you're going to go back and forth. I think it's 7 rounds. So you're going to have 4 rounds in summer, 3 rounds in winter. And there are going to be certain actions kind of on the board that are only available in summer, and then a certain amount that are only available in winter, and then some that will be available in both. And when Mike talked about it a couple lists ago, you made a really good point where like one thing that's really interesting is you get to invest into these actions. Yeah. Where basically these actions might be like, oh, you get to like do this thing based off of how many of this thing you have. And next to that action, there'll be like a little track. And you can do a different action that allows you to bump up those tracks. So now when you go back there at a later time, you then get to do more because now you have like more shovels or something like that. And so you get to invest in these things. So there's a constant thing of like, ooh, do I want to invest in this? Do I want to invest in that? Because you can't do everything. You don't have enough time. Right. And then you're going back and forth. As you're going into winter, you're going to need fuel and things like that. So you make sure you have things that you can burn for fuel. You need to, I don't think you have to feed your people like, to some degree. You have to feed people?
I don't think so.
I think this one time you actually don't have to feed people. Yeah. But you have that kind of back and forth, which is really, really fun. This game is great, and it's also just cool to see a big old Uwe Rosenberg farming game, which we absolutely love. This ain't gonna be the last one you're gonna see, folks. We love these kinds of big Uwe games, but they're not very often like 1 to 2 player only. And so this is really cool to be like, oh, this is 2 player only for a game this size. Like that's really cool. It's just great, and I really, really enjoy it.
Boom, good call. That's your 36?
Yep.
My number 36 is an iteration of a game, and we actually prefer this over the original game. This is Terraforming Mars Ares Expedition. So
yes,
this was the first of the alternate versions. The dice game now also exists. Yep. Ares Expedition basically kind of shrinks things down in Terraforming Mars in terms of like getting rid of the main board. So you don't have a main board where you're placing out tiles anymore. There is a central board that shows ocean tiles as they get flipped up. And you are still doing Terraforming Mars stuff. You are still trying to, bring up the temperature of the planet, get some oxygen going, and get the oceans out. But there's not the kind of area control, aspect that is in the base Terraforming Mars. But what it keeps intact is the kind of tableau of cards that you're going to put out there that will give you production in various things like money and plants and titanium and stuff like that. And it keeps all that central, which was for us the favorite part is the engine that you get to build up. I get all this money now, and what can I do with that money? Play out better cards and more expensive things like that. So it keeps that central. And then what it does is it kind of shakes up the round structure, where in Terraforming Mars, you're just going around taking 1 or 2 actions at a time, around and around until everybody passes. Then you do production, everyone gets their resources, and we move into the next round and get some new cards and stuff like that. Well, here you are going to be choosing a phase that you want to activate of the 5 possible, and whatever phases get selected by one or more of the players are going to be the only phases that activate. The first phase will allow everyone to play a green card. The second phase will allow you to play the blue kind of action or event cards. The third phase will allow you to take actions. The fourth phase will be doing your productions. You're not guaranteed to produce every round. It's only if someone, you or someone else, chooses that phase to activate. The fifth phase helps you kind of manage your cards and stuff like that. So I really enjoy that from round to round, and the rounds are quick. Different things are going to be available. So there's a little bit of a mind game of like, you know what? I really need to produce, but I really want to play this green card first. I feel like Nick's going to produce this round, so I'm going to choose the first phase to activate. Hopefully someone chooses the fourth. And there's like a little bit of those mind games. I like that the rounds are just a little bit more dynamic in that way. And it keeps that card play center to the game, which for us is the most important and interesting thing. There's no disrespect to base Terraform Mars or the board. I still enjoy that and play it often. But Ares is the one for us. So it's my favorite of those. And I just love the theming of like terraforming a planet. Still cool.
Yeah.
And it keeps the card play and the kind of... race for the galaxy vibe of like, if you're the person who selects a phase to activate, you get a little bonus. You get a little something more, a little better version of the action, which is really fun to play with. So that action follow mechanism works really well in Terraforming Mars, and it's all kind of simultaneous play, so it just kind of moves along nicely.
Yeah.
Love that one. That's 36. Number 35 is a game I would never have expected to be on a top 100 based on the first couple plays of it, but I played it a bunch now. This is Res Arcana.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I'm not surprised this is this. I'm not surprised it's on your list or this high. Yeah.
Res Arcana is a game that I play almost exclusively with Jeff from Foster the Meeple. If you're not familiar with Foster the Meeple.
How many games have you two played?
I don't know, 30 or so
I've played so many.
If you don't know Foster the Meeple, it's Jeff and Jamie. You should follow them, subscribe. We'll put
pretty much the best people
their
to play
channel in the description. They're some of our very best friends. And I played Jeff in Res Arcana. This is a game that they really enjoy. And I kind of expressed that, like, you know what? I played this game a couple times way back when, and it really, mostly because I'm really bad at it, I didn't enjoy it. I just would get beaten so badly. And I'm like, I don't know how to make an engine with these cards. And then I started playing it again and got some tips and stuff like that. And now I understand how to play the game. And I really, really, really enjoy playing mostly again with Jeff. And we just play game after game after game. And in this game, you're basically going to have a set of 8 cards. And we play with just kind of the standard rules. We're going to get these 8 cards. And those are your cards in the game. Yeah. That's what you get. And then you can choose a mage, your kind of leader. And with that set of cards, 3 of which you'll start with in hand, and your mage, you are going to try to build an engine of resources and stuff and be really selective in what cards you put into play and pay for, and the resources they produce, which cards you discard to get resources, and all sorts of things in the effort to get these places of power and generate points. You need to get some sort of engine up and running that is going to give you points, so it's a race to 10. If you get to 10 points first and then end the round and have the most points, you are the winner of the game. Boom. So I just love the whole, like, okay, here's my cards. Here are my 2 mages. Here's the places of power and like what resources they want to put into play, what resources you have to feed into them to turn into points and blah, blah, blah. Based on all this information, what strategy am I going to create for myself? And it's really, really fun to take a look at that and try to solve that puzzle time and time again. It's kind of infinitely replayable. It's on Board Game Arena. It works very well over there. And shouts out to Jeff, because now I see the light. Now
you sure have. You have really.
And I really disliked this game to start because I was purely because I was so
I hated it too,
and
I like it now too because I'm better at it now, or just I don't know, smarter. I'm a genius.
Sometimes
now,
if you take a down, you have enough downtime. Maybe come back to a game and see if it's better for you now. In this 100%. Case, it was. It won't always be that way, but it worked with Res Arcana.
My number 35 is going to be The Loop. This is a crisis management cooperative game where there's a whole bunch of bad stuff happening. You're trying to basically survive it. And I really like crisis management games. The Loop is probably my favorite of them right now. I really enjoy The Loop a lot. It's kind of overtaken Pandemic for me as that like my favorite of these kinds of games.
Nice.
This is a game where you are going to be having some kind of time Lord person, you basically can travel through time because Dr. Foe, who's like the big bad, is traveling through all different time zones. There's like going to the Renaissance, the medieval era, the end times, the Age of Antiquity, that kind of stuff. He's messing stuff up. He's dropping out these red cubes, which are like these bad cubes. And if there's too many in a sector, that sector will get a vortex, and that part of time is basically lost. All this kind of stuff. If you get 3 of those, you lose. And then he's also putting out these clones everywhere. These clones are just messing up times because he's putting like a medieval clone in the Renaissance era. And they're all like, who's that guy? And basically you have to try and get those clones back to their origin areas, which then destroys them. So basically you'll do that through card play, where it's your turn. You'll get cards that you can play. And you're going to be able to move around. All of your characters are all going to have a special ability that they're going to be able to do, which is also very, very useful. And you can play these cards and you're allowed to do a lot of stuff. It's going to be like move. You can like push a clone one segment over, or you can move a clone here, or you can do this, take away 2 energy cubes from an adjacent spot. Because again, the board is a septagonal board. It's a 7-sided board. And each area is, again, a different part of time. So it says like go backwards in time and take a thing off. So you can go to like the spot after you and take a spot. All these different kinds of things. But the cool thing is, and kind of like the point of the game, why it's called the loop, is you can put out these green energy cubes on the board. And during a player's turn, they can take up one of these energy cubes and essentially reuse cards that they've already used. When you play cards, they're going to have a symbol in the top right. And when you use them, you'll exhaust them. When you loop, you then can unexhaust all cards with one symbol type on them. So if it's like a star symbol, you can bring back all your star cards, which means you then get to use them again. If you then are in a spot that has 2 energy cubes, you can then take them and loop again. If you have 3 energy cubes, you can loop again. You can technically loop infinitely, although you will run. It's hard to do more than twice.
Yeah.
But you can. And so this game is also very cooperative because you're like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to move this out of your way. I'm going to drop an energy cube here. You can use that on your turn. Da-da-da. And you're basically trying to loop and get past all these crises. It's very tough, but it's very fun. And you win the game. Every different time is going to have some kind of mission that you're trying to do. It might be like, destroy a clone, every different kind of clone. So you need to make sure you destroy every single kind of clone, and that's how you defeat that mission. You're trying to defeat a certain amount of missions to win the game. And there's also a couple different ways to play the game. It's really, really fun solo. It works really well. I just love this game. I love it more every single time I play it. I just really enjoy it, you know?
Yeah.
That's 35, yeah?
Sure. Let's do it. 44, 34, 24.
Number 34 is kind of my small card game of choice at this point, and that is Nana.
Nice.
Nana, or Trio if you're over here in the US, is a Go Fish for gamers. This game has really, really... shouts out to Aldi from Board Game Geek who showed us this game originally, because it has taken over our kind of small game. We take it everywhere with us.
Of course.
We've introduced it to like so many people. They've all then gone out and bought it. I mean, it's really spread like crazy.
Yeah.
Banana is, like you said, it's Gamers Go Fish, where you're basically trying to find 3 of the same number. Everyone will have a hand of cards. You will arrange your cards from lowest to highest. And there are cards 1 through 12 out there, and there are 3 copies of each of those cards. You're trying to find 3 of the same card. And how you do that is you can ask people what they have in their hand, but you can only ever ask them what their highest card or their lowest card is, and they have to show you. They can't like lie. So like, Mike, what is your highest card? And Mike will put out his highest card and say it's an 11. I can be like, Mary, what's your highest card? And they can put out, say, hopefully, maybe another 11. And if I can find the third 11, boom, I get to take those cards. I've now won like a mission or task or whatever it's called. You're basically trying to win 3 of those. If you can do that 3 times, you win the game. It's just really fun. There's also like a tableau of cards in the middle, the kind of leftover cards. So you can also ask the table, like, table, what's this card? Because some of the cards might be down there. But again, you can only ever ask the highest or the lowest card. So if I ask Mike his highest card, it's 11. Mary's is a 10. My turn is over because I did not find the same numbers. Those cards go back to their hand. But now everyone knows Mary's highest card is a 10. Mike's highest card is an 11. So now everyone knows that. It's just, you can also ask yourself, maybe I have 2 11s, I find Mike's one, and I'm like, Nick, what's your highest card? Nick, what's your highest card? Boom, I found all 3 11s. It just works. It's one of those kind of small card games like Scout or something like that that just goes over so well with everyone. It's so easy to teach. It's so easy to play. I definitely prefer Nana over Trio because I just like the art, although Trio's got really cool art too, so really any of those games, they play exactly the same. I just really enjoy it. It's our go-to, like, quick, easy, small card game that we bring everywhere.
Very good call, my man. My number 34 is a deduction game, in now a line of these games. This is the Search for Lost Species. You can also choose the Search for Planet X here. We prefer the Lost Species theming over Planet X, but both games are fantastic.
They're both outstanding, yeah.
So the Search for Lost Species is a deduction game where you, kind of a logic deduction game, where you are trying to find this lost species. It'll be different from game to game, but it might be like a kangaroo and stuff. And you are going to be going around an island, basically, observing different areas and finding wildlife and trying to then, based on what you find, deduce what other things might be on the map and specifically where the lost species must be. And they all have different rules. So there's different types of animals you can come across. There's these little couscous, little marmot-looking things. Yep. And there's always going to be 3 of them in the game. They're always going to each be within 2 spaces of all the other couscous in the game. Lories are going to be in a pack of 4, and that shape can be rotated and stuff, but they'll always be in 4 adjacent hexes. There'll be a python that's never next to the couscous. Or rather, probably the couscous are not next to the python. Like,
let's be honest, There
are toads, which are always going to be adjacent to 2 empty spaces. 2 spaces that don't have any animals whatsoever. And then, of course, there's other empty spaces. And then the lost species, which if you go and observe a spot that has a lost species, it's going to come back and register as if it's an empty space, which may or may not be true. So if you ever get something where it's like, there's nothing here, you're like, well, maybe.
That could be the lost species.
And the lost species, depending on which one you have, will have their rules. I think the kangaroo says that wherever the python is, if they're in the mountains or they're in the desert or whatever, or the jungle, I should say, the lost species will not be in the same terrain type. So if they're in the desert, you know that the lost species is not in desert, for example. And that's all really cool just on its own. But this is an app-assisted game where as you play, you're going to have the ability to kind of research the lost species and learn more about the relationship of different animal types on the island. So you're going to be able to find out, like, hey, the couscous and the toad in this particular game, and it is specific to the one game you're playing, and it's kind of algorithmically generated. The couscous and the toads in this one are all next to mountains. Okay, so that for this particular game, I have unique information that will not be the same next time I play. There will also be rules about the lost species that will change stuff up that will be specific from game to game. They're not just that basic rule, but now additional stuff.
Like you can draw a straight line from the lost species to a toad.
It's like, okay, so if I find a toad, then I know that like it's got to be in one of these, but
there's 2 toads, so why not be that toad? So it's very good.
There's a million things like that that you get to do. Then as you discover more stuff, you can start to rule certain things out. You can say like, okay, I now know where all of the birds are. That means I can cross off birds from any other spaces, and you can whittle stuff down until you have, hopefully, a fairly good idea of where the lost species is, and you can make a kind of final guess to gain points. You can also, as you go around the board, if you're pretty sure a toad is here, you can basically put down little research tokens saying that, like, I'm pretty sure this is the toad. If it turns out that that is correct, then you'll get more points that way. So you're trying to make observations about kind of everything on the island, and find that lost species to get your main hit of points. It's just really, really fun. I love that certain logic rules change from game to game. So you have some stuff that's the same, so I can kind of keep that in mind, but then there's unique rules every time you play, so it's always a new puzzle.
So good.
Fantastic. That's my number 34, The Search for Lost Species.
True crossover.
True crossover?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Do it. Hit me.
1, 2, 3, So Clover.
Oh, no.
Oh, no. I thought it'd be So Clover. So Clover is my 33. This is a party game, a clue-giving game, where you are going to have a 4-leaf clover, which is a dry erase board you can write on. And you have spots for 4 of these cards that you're going to put on there, and each card has 4 words on each of the 4 sides of the square. You're going to put this together to assemble a strange 4-leaf clover with 4 sets of words that may or may not make sense together. And you are going to have to write clues that are going to point to, on each side, essentially, which 2 words, you're kind of trying to find the midpoint between those 2 words to write a clue that hopefully points to both of them. The thing that we always do is baseball and vampire. Those might be the 2 words next to each other, so you might write bat, because like vampires turn into bats, you hit a baseball with a bat, maybe that's your commonality between those 2 things. And then once you've made your clues, they've written on the clover itself, you are going to disassemble your clover, take those cards off, you're going to slide a 5th card in, shuffle up, and then basically your teammates, as a cooperative game, you're going to see if you can correctly reassemble the 4-leaf clover. So basically you put all the cards in the right spots with the right ends, you know, situated on the edges to point toward those kind of clue words that you gave. Nick and I really enjoy clue-giving games.
Yeah.
And
it's always a challenge.
It's
like,
always
how to make this work.
Yeah, it's always a challenge. If you're familiar with Codenames, it does a similar thing where it's like, I need to make a clue point to multiple words that definitely are probably not going to be similar. And that's just a really fun thing to try to do, is try to like point to both of them, or be strategic and point to one of them and hope that people just get the other one and stuff like that. And then the random element of that 5th card getting shuffled in, it might accidentally point really well to some of your clues, but of course you didn't know that because you don't know. But each of those clue cards also has 4 words on them, so you have to pay attention to the words that are not on the outsides because you don't want to actually point to any of those words either. To me, when I first played this game, I was like, there is no possible way that you're going to be able to recreate the clover.
It seems
it's way
impossible.
too hard. It's impossible, but it's not.
Yeah.
It is possible to do it, and you have a couple cracks at it. So if you're wrong on the first one, you basically anything that's correct stays in its place, and you remove other cards. But it's actually possible to recreate the clover. So it's incredibly satisfying when you're like, yes, we nailed that. I know this person. I know how their brain works. They mean these 2 random words together, and it's just incredibly fun.
Yeah,
and it's cool to be able to
so
write on the clover themselves. It's kind of our go-to clue-giving game. It's really hard to beat. That is So Clover at 33.
About 33, I thought it was going to be a true crossover, and this is going to be Fame. This is the Friedman Freeze game where you are in Egypt, ancient Egypt, and you are building out Egypt, but everything in Egypt is owned by the pharaoh, so everything you're doing, you do not own. And other people can activate those things, other people can build upon those things and change them and things like that. This is a game, it's a kind of a deck programming game where you have a hand of cards, you'll be getting new cards, those cards will allow you to do stuff. Again, they can allow you to put out like cities or towns or roads or or harvest, grapes or all these different kinds of things. They're all unique. But the cool thing is basically on your turn, you'll play out a card, you'll kind of do the thing, but eventually you can do what's called an administration action, because when you play out a card, you'll eventually go into your discard pile. An administration action, what you'll do is you will get some money, and then you will get to take back a certain amount of cards from your discard pile, but in the order that they are already in. So I will take the top card of the discard pile, so I'm taking 3, the next one, and then the next one. And then you can pay money to then keep taking more. So it's one of those things where it's like you don't want to bury a really, really good card, because then you're like, oh crap, I really need that card. I don't want to bury it. And so you have to play that later. So it's kind of like weird deck programming where you're playing the cards you need to when you want to play them, put them in your discard pile, but then also trying to get those back. Or some of your basic cards at the beginning, you're like, you know what? I do want to bury this card. I want this card at the bottom because I have better cards now. I don't need this one anymore. And like I said, everything is owned by the pharaoh. So basically, I can make this certain little hex into like a little city, but then Mike might get a card that will then score points for like cities on the board. So it's like, okay, now he's going to get to benefit from that thing because again, I don't own that. The pharaoh owns that. They own everything. And so it's just really, really cool. I really love this game. It feels very unique. It really doesn't feel like any other game we've played. And it just rocks. I just really, really enjoy it a lot.
Good call.
Yeah, that's Fame. Not much more to say. It's good. Just get over it.
We like it.
Get over it. My number 32 was kind of a surprise for me, but gosh darn it, I like this game and no one's talking about it. This is Tribes of the Wind.
Oh, yeah.
I freaking love Tribes of the Wind.
Yeah,
and like
it's so good,
no one is talking about it. This game kind of popped on BGG at first because it has a really great Vincent Dutrait cover, and then it kind of just went, no one cared anymore. This game is great. This is a game where it's kind of like a post-apocalyptic thing where you are now like living in the forest and the trees because the rest of the world has gotten polluted and is destroyed more or less. And you're basically trying to replant the forest down in those areas that are no longer really habitable. And you do that by getting rid of the pollution tokens that are there and then planting trees. And then in those trees, you can also build villages because, again, you live up in the trees now. You can put like temples out and things like that. But the cool thing about this game, what this game kind of hinges on, is to play these cards. You have these cards, and the cards are the 4 elements: earth, air, fire, and water. And all of your cards, to play them, are going to have some kind of requirement on them. And that requirement usually is going to deal with your neighbors. So it'd basically be like, to play this particular Earth card, I need to have more air cards in my tableau here than both of my neighbors, or maybe even just one of my neighbors. But if I have more air than both of my neighbors, I'll get a better action on this card.
Yeah.
Or it might be like, you need to have no fire cards, or you need to have, or amongst you and your two neighbors, you need to have at least 5 water cards, something like that. So it all depends on what you have versus what your neighbors have. And sometimes you want to have less, sometimes you want to have more. It really just depends on the card. And it makes it really interesting. It's one of the few games that has a card rail that actually works and makes sense because you can see the backs of the cards, you can see what element they are. And so it's really interesting. You're trying to play these cards out, but you're also trying to work your kind of like hand of cards in a way to play these cards effectively. Because you're like, oh, I'm going to collect a bunch of fire cards because I know I need that. And then you're also at the end of your turn going to be drawing cards. And when you're drawing cards, they're all face down. So you can see what's on the back of them, but you don't get to see what's on the front of them. But like fire cards almost always deal with like getting rid of pollution. The water cards are usually about planting trees. The earth cards are also can be about like planting trees. And then the air cards are usually about moving your people around, because to build these tiles, you have to have a certain amount of people on it so they can kind of build it into a place that's habitable. It's really, really fun. That kind of comparison mechanic feels really unique. It's got beautiful vintage trait art. Everyone is a little bit different. You have a little bit of asymmetry, but not like a ton. So it's not like you have to learn a whole new game like Root or something like that. I just really like it. We've been introducing this game to people recently. We introduced it to Paula recently, and she like loved it. She then showed like Matthew recently. He loved it. I showed Foster the Meeple when I was there. They loved it. So it's just like, I'm trying to like massively evangelize this game because I think it's really, really good. It's my number 32. I really like it a lot.
I agree, man. I do think it's underappreciated for sure. I want to play it again now that you just talked about it. My number 32 was mentioned earlier this list by Nick. This is Scholars of the South Tigris.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Yeah, so Scholars of the South, we're big fans of the South Tigris trilogy in general. Scholars of the South Tigris is really cool. Everything Nick just said about it, I agree. I love the linear nature of getting scrolls, bringing them to the Houses of Wisdom, hiring translators, having those translators work on the scrolls, and then get your output and stuff like that. And the shared infrastructure, the fact that I can bring a scroll in that Nick then translates, Nick can use my translators, I can use his. There's so much kind of like mutual benefit, everyone can benefit from stuff. There's a lot of positive player interaction, which I think is really cool. It's like, I want to use your translator, so I want to get this scroll. But that means your translator gets gold, and you might be able to retire them, which means you get to tuck them under your board and get a special power.
Yeah.
Do I really want you to get that? Well, is what I'm getting worth more than that? And that's just a wonderful thing to consider. That is such a cool thing in games. And the ways you can work dice, the tracks you can bump up. There's, again, like 6 of those tracks, and each of those tracks is like, if you get up high on this track, it's immensely powerful for you.
Bonkers.
I want to do that with all of the tracks. You super cannot. So you have to pick and choose, but it's one of those things where I'm like, I want all of this stuff. So how do I choose what is going to work best for me? It's awesome every single time. So completely agree with you. Scholars of the South Tigris is amazing. My number 31.
I was going to say True Crosswords.
No, you've already mentioned this game. It's another Garphill Games. This is Viscounts of the West Kingdom.
Wow, okay, yeah.
So
Doubling
we're sticking with Garphill Games. I've had a couple doubles, a couple of Steffenfelds, a couple of Garphill Games.
Yeah, really though.
Clumped together. So Viscounts of the West Kingdom, I think you mentioned on the last list or the list before, is an awesome game where you are moving around your Viscount around this rondel, this circular board. And as you make stops off at different spots, you are going to be doing trades, building buildings from your player board, which unlock abilities and stuff like that and scoring. You can put your workers into the castle and kind of work on your influence there, or you can transcribe manuscripts as well. And you are each turn adding a card to your player board, which will have 3 cards in it at a time. Once you kind of get up and running. And these cards are going to give you different icons. There's kind of 4 main icons. They point to the 4 main actions in the game. Again, money bags for trading, and stone and hammers for building, things like that. And so you're going to make use of these icons, and based on where you land, you're going to choose one of the action types that you can take that's legal at that spot. And you want to hope to, when you go to do manuscripts, you have a bunch of the kind of black crosses amongst your cards in your player board, and then each action type can also be powered up with a resource. So you can also add these ink pots to those manuscript actions to kind of between that and your icons on your card, hopefully take, be able to transcribe a really powerful manuscript, which has like a set collection element.
Yeah.
The castle in the center, you want to have a bunch of people as high up in the castle as possible. If you build, you want to kind of get, there's these 3 types of buildings, each of which have 3. You want to get the complete area of all 3 of a building type built. And the trade will kind of give you the access to resources and stuff to kind of power up those rest of the actions. What's really cool is the cards you're adding will give iconography. Then oftentimes, almost every time, they'll have an ability as well that will either trigger when they first go onto your board. They might have a perpetual ability that's active so long as they stay on your board, or an ability that happens when they leave your board. So you're also managing those things, like what abilities do I want based on the types of workers I play. The value of that worker, if it costs 1, 2, or 3 silver to purchase them, that also dictates how far your Viscount has to move. So you're also trying to manage the movement piece.
Yeah.
There's a lot of fun, interesting little puzzly elements with this game that are really great, but it's ultimately got nice, smooth, easy to understand turns. The kind of flow of the game is cool. It's kind of deck building in slow motion because you will be adding cards and stuff, but you're only playing out 1 at a time. Just really fun stuff. And I've just enjoyed some of my favorite of the West Kingdom games. And that's why it's my list, 31.
All right, my 31 is A Feast for Odin, which is...
I said I don't comment on your picks, so I won't.
That's fair, you should.
But how dare you?
My 31 is Feast for Odin. I really like Feast for Odin, obviously. It's my 31. I like this game a lot. We don't play this game too much anymore, and I guess I've cooled on a little bit. It's in my 31. You know, it's very high.
It's not falling off a cliff or anything.
No, it's not. I really like Feast for Odin. Feast for Odin is a big old sandbox Uwe Rosenberg game. We're talking about big Uves. I told you I was going to talk about one again. It's a big sandbox game where you're like kind of like Vikings and stuff, and you're doing a whole bunch of different Viking stuff. So you can like go whaling, and you can like go shipbuilding, and you can go plundering, and all this kind of different stuff.
Go find
islands, and you can just do a whole bunch of different stuff. But ultimately, it's just action selection. You're doing worker placement and getting resources, turning those resources into other resources, and then trying to fill in your kind of main board, because everything you get basically is going to have a bunch of negative points on it, and you want to cover those up with these various tiles. Like I said, it's a big sandbox. There's like 50 or 60 different worker placement spots you can go to. They're broken down into columns. So the first column, which are the weakest ones, only take 1 worker. The second columns take 2, then 3, then 4. And then the expansion is even a 5th one that also now only takes 1 or 2, but that'll end your round. And I really enjoy those kinds of games where it's like, you can do this action, but it's going to cost 4 of your workers.
Yeah.
Like, that's a lot. Even by the end of the game, that's still going to be like a full 1/3 of your workers. You're like, man, is that worth it? Like, that's a lot of my people. And I always really enjoyed that kind of decision space of like, trying to figure out, is that worth that to use that many of my resources for? I really enjoy it. But Feast for Odin, again, it's like, it's bonkers. It's humongous. It's overwhelming when you first play it, but it's so darn good. And it's just a big sandbox. You're like, I'm going to do this turn. I'm just going to try and get a bunch of horses or pigs and just see what happens and just see if I can win that way. I really love just taking just kind of a new strategy every single time. Plays really good solo too. I love Feast for Odin. It's my number 31. It's great.
Boom.
It'll be higher on his list.
yeah, don't worry about it.
That's
our
it.
list, everybody.
Yes, indeed. That is our
no spoilers, man.
Yes, indeed. That is our 40 to 31. We're getting into it. We are now officially in the top 1/3 of this whole dang thing.
Dang.
Which is pretty good. So be back next time for our 30 to 21. Make sure to watch the other ones if you haven't already. And make sure to be putting down your list down if you've been going along with us, making your top 100 with us. It's really fun. We've been using Pub Meeple, so you can use that as well.
Do check that out.
It's really, really good. And I think that's it, yeah?
That's going to be it. One thing we didn't mention at the start is we are running a Kickstarter campaign, to support this channel. So it's our annual fundraising event that we're doing. We're kind of using this list to spread awareness about that. If you enjoy what we do and have a couple extra dollars and wouldn't mind giving it to us, it really helps us. We're hoping to cover all business expenses, rent on a new studio, which we have now signed a lease for. We're not in it currently, but we will be very soon. And things like that. Your support really helps us to keep going, and we really, really appreciate that. So do check out in the description of this video or a card up here a link to that campaign if you're so inclined.
And that's going to be it. I guess we'll see y'all later.
We'll catch you on the next top 10.
All right, everybody.
Thank you so much for watching that next installment of our top 100. We really appreciate. Although I think I just said top 10, idiot Nick.
Thank you so much for watching. Check out the other top 100s over there if you haven't already. Big shout out to our channel sponsors, Restoration Games, Garphill Games, and Board Game Geek. Have a great rest of your day, y'all.